The Trump administration, several weeks ago, before the whole Venezuela thing even happened, outlined a new foreign policy strategy that the United States was going to be implementing for South America and, of course, Latin America. And they're calling it the Donroe Doctrine, which, of course, is a play on the Monroe Doctrine that was put in place in the 1800s. But this administration has decided to name their creepy new and very aggressive foreign policy actions after Donald Trump himself. After all, he's the guy doing it, so why not name it after him to begin with? But here's the thing, the Monroe Doctrine, again, back in the 1800s, 1823, basically, by James Monroe, said, okay, Europe, you're going to pull out of Latin America, which includes, the northern part of South America. You guys are going to pull out, and we, the United States, are now going to be the kind of superpower over here in the Western Hemisphere, and we're going to make sure that all these countries are doing what they should be doing according to us. Then, of course, about 100 years almost later, Teddy Roosevelt came in and created what was called the Roosevelt Corollary. And that actually took it a step further. The Roosevelt Corollary essentially said that, listen, if we find out you Latin American countries are not operating in what we, the United States, believe is our best interest, or if you're doing things counterproductive to what we want done, we may have to get involved in your country. The Donroe Doctrine, named, of course, after Donald Trump, takes it even a step further. Here is what Donald Trump's new doctrine is. Well, let me go ahead and put you this way. This is what Trump said about it after the bombing of Venezuela. The Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a real lot. I love how he talks like a friggin' kindergartner. They now call it the Donroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. And here is what the administration said about the Donroe Doctrine. This means the U.S. will make sure the Western Hemisphere, quote, remains reasonably stable and well-governed enough to prevent and discourage mass migration to the United States. Governments falling within America's sphere of influence would cooperate with the administration's controversial strike campaign on alleged drug boats in the Southern Caribbean and Eastern Pacific as well. We want a hemisphere that remains free of hostile foreign incursion or ownership of key assets that supports critical supply chains. We want to ensure our continued access to key strategic locations. We're restoring a needed focus on defeating threats in the Western Hemisphere. No, you're not. By your own admission here, what you're doing is making sure that we have access to every country's resources. We can use every country to kind of store our military when we need it. And if they don't blindly go along with every single thing we want done regarding military strikes, regarding migration, anything, we can simply walk in, overthrow your government, and we run your country now. That's the Donroe Doctrine. That is what this administration specifically spelled out. And as per usual, there's a simpler way to do this. We don't have to go in and overthrow other governments, like we have using the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt Corollary with Nicaragua and Cuba and several other Latin American countries, and I can tell you, each and every time didn't end well for anybody. The U.S. looked rather stupid. They were all effectively failures by the United States. And we ended up creating more problems than what existed in the first place. And now here we are saying we're going to take it to another level. But again, simpler solution. If the real goal is to make sure that our neighbors are stable and not threatening us, and that people aren't wanting to leave that country to come to the United States, then how about instead of spending all the money on new planes and bombs and all that, why don't we spend the money making the countries better. There was a very famous episode of South Park, God, probably 20 years ago at this point, where they had people from the future coming back in time to live in present day because the future was so bad. And their solution was, we just won't have kids, everybody will turn gay. But then somebody was like, well, what if we just work to make the future better, and then they wouldn't have to come back in time to live here? We could do that with these countries. I mean, we have the money. We spend $1 trillion a year now on our military. And if we diverted a fraction of that into helping these nations, working on farmland, getting rid of toxins and pollutants so that they can grow crops and breathe air and drink clean water, if we help build up their infrastructure, and that again costs a tiny fraction of what we spend on tanks and planes and bombs and aircraft carriers. We could solve all these problems humanitarianly, right? Donald Trump could win his peace prize that he so desperately wants. But that's not what America's military-industrial complex wants. They want war. And by God, they're getting it right now. Scientists recently discovered a new evolutionary trait in puppies, and it's that they cannot grow up and reach their full potential unless you subscribe to this channel. Don't do it for me, folks. Do it for little Atlas and Judge here. Good boys. You do good. You want to say something? No? Okay.